Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very significant topic of discussion on constitutional law, which is the Supreme Court of India, its establishment, appointment, and removal of judges. When we talk about the Constitution of India, we know that it has been divided in several parts, which are 22 parts, and these parts are further divided in various chapters. So, amongst this, when we talk about chapter 4 of part 5, which starts from article 124 of the Constitution of India, it talks about the union judiciary, which eventually means the Supreme Court of India, establishment, appointment, and removal of judges of the Supreme Court of India. It is very significant to discuss and to know about the Supreme Court, its establishment, a little bit about its evolution or history, and most importantly to know about two aspects: appointment and removal of judges, because this particular factor fixes the very essential element of judiciary being independent, or independent judiciary, independent courts in India. And at the same point of time, it is also important to know that what are the powers of these judges, this court, so that it can go to the extent of interpreting any given provision of the Constitution of India, and everybody, including the President of India, is bound by that interpretation of the Supreme Court. So this is very important and significant topic for us to know and discuss, that what are the significant powers of the judges of the Supreme Court of India, and even before that, most importantly, to know that how the Supreme Court has been established, how the appointment of judges takes place. So let's start the discussion. When we talk about the establishment of the Supreme Court of India, the Supreme Court of India is the apex court and the final interpreter as well as the guardian of the Constitution. We also use the terminology known as custodian of the Constitution of India, because in law, see, even in general, English or Hindi or any given language, a word, a terminology can have several meanings. Similarly, in law, a word can have several meanings. I'll just give you an example. If you refer to part 3 of the Constitution of India, which is fundamental rights, in that you have article 12, which is state. Now, state has several meanings. State has one particular meaning, which relates to various provinces of India, like state of Madhya Pradesh, state of Rajasthan, state of Gujarat, state of Chhattisgarh. Similarly, state has a different meaning in international law. In international law, state is referred to all the member nations. Like India is a member state. US is a member state. So in international law, the term state is used for to referring it to various nations. But in article 12 of the Constitution of India, the word state is referred to mean the Parliament of India, the Government of India, the legislative assemblies or legislatures of the states and state governments, and also local and other authorities, which includes, public sector undertakings, municipal corporations, etc. How do we know this? Some of it, or most of the element, we know it by the terminology of article 12, but we know several things only and only by the interpretation made by the Supreme Court of India. So it is important for us to believe and rely absolutely on the interpretations made by the Supreme Court of India with respect to any given right, any given provision of the Constitution of India. And that is the reason why Supreme Court is known as the final interpreter, the custodian of the Constitution of India. Recently, with respect to the power of the governor, the Supreme Court has given a verdict in the case of state of Tamil Nadu versus the governor of Tamil Nadu. The Supreme Court has now, interpreted this provision, that what do we mean by article 200, 201, wherein the powers of the governor are given with respect to giving assent to a bill. So we know this only by the interpretation of the Constitution by the Supreme Court of India. So wherever there is a gap, wherever there is a lack of explanation, or lack of clarity, or there is an ambiguity, it is the Supreme Court which interprets the provisions of the Constitution, and everyone, all the citizens, all the members, even to the extent of President of India, all of us are bound by the interpretation made by the Supreme Court of India. Now, when we talk about establishment of the Supreme Court, as I said, it is a part of, it starts from Article 124 of the Constitution of India. It ensures that rule of law, separation of powers, and judicial review is in place. We start with Article 124, Clause 1 of the Constitution of India. 124.1 states that there shall be a Supreme Court of India consisting of a Chief Justice of India, and until Parliament by law prescribes a larger number of not more than 7 other judges. Now, see, when we read Article 124 Clause 1, it says that there shall be a Supreme Court of India at New Delhi, and it shall consist of a Chief Justice of India and 7 other judges, which means in 1950, when the Constitution of India was enforced, was implemented from 26 January 1950 onwards, and the Supreme Court was established in January 1950. In that very year, the total strength of the Supreme Court was 1 CJI, Chief Justice of India, and 7 other judges, total 8. But now the strength has been increased to 34 judges. So now it reads as 1 Chief Justice of India and 33 other judges, the total strength presently being 34 as per the 2019 amendment of the Constitution. We will read about the constitutional amendment and the changes made on it earlier further, but we can have a clarity in our mind with respect to the total strength. It started with 1 CJI and 7 other judges, total 8, a sanctioned strength of 8 judges in the Supreme Court. And gradually, over several years, the amendments have been made, the numbers have been increased, and now it stands to 34, and this includes 1 Chief Justice of India. Let's move to the next part of discussion. Before we get into the detailed discussion of the provisions of the Constitution with respect to establishment, its powers, the appointment and removal mechanism, etc., let's have a brief, overview of how the Supreme Court of India came into its present existence, and how we know this in the name of the Supreme Court of India. What is the brief historical evolution or brief historical history of the same? It starts from the pre-independence era, wherein the Britishers, the British India, in British India, the British government, they had passed the Regulating Act 1773. And through this Regulating Act of 1773, the Supreme Court was established at Calcutta, the present Kolkata. In 1773, the first Supreme Court was established at Calcutta, which is now known as Kolkata. And this was not termed as the Supreme Court of India. This was termed as the Supreme Court of Calcutta. But the intention, the purpose was to establish an apex court. If just for your further information, till 1911, the capital of the Britishers, the capital of British India was at Calcutta, which was shifted to Delhi in 1911. So 1773, Calcutta being considered the capital, the Supreme Court of Calcutta was established with the intention of purpose that this shall be considered as the apex court, the head court of the nation. In 1935, and then post 1773, there were several changes which were brought. There were charter acts which were brought. The presidencies were established at Madras, at Bombay, and also at Calcutta in the names of high courts. Several other high courts were established in between. And then in 1935, the major change happened. As I told you, in 1911, the capital got shifted from Calcutta to Delhi. In 1935, the Britishers passed the Government of India Act 1935. And this Government of India Act 1935, let me tell you, friends, is considered to be the biggest source of the Constitution of India. Because in the Constitution of India, when the Constituent Assembly of India was in the process of making of the Constitution of India, they had referred to several provisions from the constitutions across the world. And they have accordingly considerably modified and adapted and adopted certain provisions from various constitutions across the world. But most of the provisions of the Government of India Act 1935, which was passed by the Britishers, they have been adapted and adopted in the Constitution of India. And one of those similar provisions, not exactly the same, but similar provision, is to have a Federal Court of India. So the Government of India Act 1935 established the Federal Court of India at New Delhi, at Delhi. And this was termed as Federal Court of India, not Supreme Court. And this was established in the year 1937 through the Government of India Act 1935. This remained in place post-independence, when India became independent in 1947, when we became a republic in 1950, post the adoption, post the enforcement of the Constitution of India, the Supreme Court of India, as per Article 124, was established at Delhi, known as the Supreme Court of India. So basically, this was the transformation from Supreme Court at Calcutta at 1773 to Federal Court of India established in 1937 to the Supreme Court of India established in 1950, which was inaugurated on 28th January 1950. The first Chief Justice of India was Justice H.J. Kania, and along with him, 7 other Supreme Court judges were appointed, and they started the mechanism, the functioning of the Supreme Court of India with respect to the powers that has been given to them by the Constitution of India. So this is the brief historical evolution of the Supreme Court. Now, moving ahead, when we talk about constitutional provisions of the Supreme Court, it starts with Article 124, Clause 1, which is the establishment of the Supreme Court of India. We'll study this in detail. Article 130, it clearly mentions that Supreme Court shall sit in New Delhi, but Parliament may provide for benches elsewhere. Article 130 clearly mentions this, that the Supreme Court shall be placed at the national capital of India. So it will be placed at New Delhi. This is what the Constitution itself says. But it also provides for if the Parliament passes a legislation or amends the Constitution accordingly, the benches of the Supreme Court may be established at other places in India. And let me tell you, there is an ongoing demand. There is an ongoing legal deliberation going on between the jurists, between the legal luminaries since a long time, that the Supreme Court of India is overburdened with petitions, right from election petitions to bail matters to public interest litigations to decide matters of constitutional importance and whatnot. Ultimately, almost every case reaches the Supreme Court of India in some or the other manner, through an appeal, through a petition, through a writ, through a curative petition or a review petition, etc. So there has been a demand, there has been a legal deliberation since a long time that the functioning of the Supreme Court of India should be restricted only and only to decide matters of constitutional importance, to decide, to interpret the Constitution, or to decide matters concerning interpretation of the Constitution of India, and to decide matters which are of such significance, such importance. But all other miscellaneous or ancillary powers of the Supreme Court, such as hearing bail matters or bail petitions and other miscellaneous reviews, etc., or appeals, it must be shifted to different benches established at 4 different places in India, benches of the Supreme Court of India, with the intention of number one, reducing the burden on the Supreme Court of India, and number two, to provide ease to the citizens of India. For instance, a person who is residing at Kolkata or a northeastern state in India has to travel to New Delhi if he has a matter, an appeal, a bail, petition, whatever the case may be. He has to travel all the way to New Delhi. A person residing at Thiruvananthapuram in Kerala or at the Chennai, they have to travel to New Delhi again. Or if you talk about a person residing in Maharashtra or Gujarat or Rajasthan, they also have to travel to New Delhi, and people at central India, they also have to travel to New Delhi. So everybody has to travel to New Delhi for any matter concerning the Supreme Court of India, which can be a bail petition, which can be an appeal, which can be a review, etc. So the second intention and purpose of establishing this bench is also to provide ease, to make it easy, convenient for the citizens of India, for the people who have to travel to the Supreme Court for every matter whichever they are concerned with. So this is, let me make it very clear, in India till date, no law has been brought, no law has been passed with respect to establishment of the benches of the Supreme Court of India. Till date, we have only and only one Supreme Court of India established at New Delhi. The other set of provisions, as you can see, from Article 131 to 142, they define the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court of India. They define the powers of the Supreme Court of India. We shall be discussing this in the upcoming slides. Composition of the Supreme Court. So as we started the discussion with Article 124(1), originally there were 1 CJI plus 7 judges. Now there are 34 judges, including the CJI, the Chief Justice of India. Article 124 clause 3 talks about the qualifications of a Supreme Court judge. So what are the qualifications that are required to be a Supreme Court judge? The first mandatory condition is that you have to be a citizen of India. If you are a citizen of India, only then you become eligible to be appointed as a Supreme Court judge. The second is, if the person, and then other conditions are all OR conditions, OR condition. The first condition is mandatory. The other three conditions are OR. You can be eligible to become a Supreme Court judge if you fulfill any of the 3, 4 and any of the 2, 3, 4, the three conditions which you can see in your screen. The first condition, that is being a citizen of India, is mandatory. The other conditions with respect to the appointment, the eligibility of being a Supreme Court judge, you have an OR condition in these three. So if you are a citizen of India and if you have served as a High Court judge for at least 5 years, if you have served as a judge of any of the High Court of India for at least 5 years, you become eligible to be appointed as a Supreme Court judge. Or if you are a citizen of India and you have been practicing as an advocate for at least 10 years, if you have been practicing as an advocate for at least 10 years in any of the high courts or subsequent high courts in India, even then you become eligible to be appointed as a Supreme Court judge. And the third condition is, the third option, I would say, that along with the citizen of India, if you are a distinguished jurist in India, then you can be appointed as a Supreme Court judge. So either along with being a citizen of India, either you have served as at least 5 years as a High Court judge, or along with being a citizen of India, you have been practicing as an advocate for at least 10 years, or you, along with the citizen of India, the President of India considers you as a distinguished jurist in India, which means it is possible that you are a law graduate, but you did not practice law, you have not been an advocate for 10 years, or you have not been a High Court judge for 5 years. Let's say you have been a professor, you have been a well-known academician, you have been a well-known commentary writer, or a book writer, but you are a law professional by degree, by your you have been considered and accepted as a distinguished jurist in India. So you can be appointed directly as a Supreme Court judge, even if you have not been a judge of the High Court, even if you have not been practicing in the High Courts of India, any of the High Courts of India. Even then you can be directly appointed as a Supreme Court judge if you are a distinguished jurist. But let me tell you, as the screen mentions, it is a rarely used provision, and in India till date the provision has not been enforced. So till date no person has been appointed as a Supreme Court judge on the ground that he has been or he is a distinguished jurist. So in India till date, only sitting High Court judges or mostly sitting Chief Justices of the High Courts in India are appointed as Supreme Court judges, or in very handful of cases, practicing advocates, that too of the practicing advocates of the Supreme Court of India, they can be directly appointed as they have been directly appointed as the Supreme Court judge. So in India there have been a few judges till date who have served the Supreme Court and have also served as the Chief Justice of India, and they were appointed directly from the bar and bench. There are two methods of appointment, either from bar or bench. The third method only for Supreme Court is distinguished jurist, but as I said, this has not been implemented, this has not been utilized till date. So the only two methods mostly which have been used are, mostly in 95% plus cases, a sitting High Court judge or a sitting Chief Justice of any of the High Courts, they have been appointed as Supreme Court judges. And in some cases, a practicing advocate of the Supreme Court of India has been appointed as Supreme Court judge. For example, one of the former Chief Justice of India, Justice UU Lalit, was a practicing advocate of the Supreme Court of India, and he was appointed as a Supreme Court judge, and then he became the Chief Justice of India. Similarly, in the upcoming years, Justice P.S. Narasimha, he was a practicing senior advocate at the Supreme Court. He has been appointed as a Supreme Court judge in 2021. He is likely to become the Chief Justice of India in 2027. Similarly, Justice K.V. Vishwanath, he was one of the members of the bench which had declared the verdict in the case of State of Tamil Nadu versus the Governor of Tamil Nadu, which I had mentioned in one of the previous slides. He was also a practicing senior advocate of the Supreme Court of India. He has been appointed as a judge of the Supreme Court in 2023, and he is likely to become the Chief Justice of India in the year 2030. So these are the mechanisms for appointment of judges in the Supreme Court of India. Now, moving further and talking further about constitutional provisions on appointment. The major significant constitutional provision in this regard is Article 124 Clause 2, which says that judges are appointed by the President after consultation with the CJI, which is the Chief Justice of India, and other senior judges. This is a norm which has been written, and it says that in the screen, as you see, it says that the process before 1993 was that appointments were made by the President in consultation with the CJI. So first, now let us look into Article 124 Clause 2, that what it says, what it has been saying, and then we will come to the interpretation made by the Supreme Court in several judges' cases, and the formation of the collegium to appoint the judges, and also the formation of the NJAC, National Judicial Appointments Commission. So when we talk about the appointment of judges in India, Article 124 Clause 2 is very, very clear, and it clearly mentions, it reads as, every judge of the Supreme Court shall be appointed by the President by warrant under his hand and seal, and shall hold office until he attains the age of 65 years. So, which means there is no minimum age for appointment of a Supreme Court judge, but the maximum age is 65 years. You retired, you superannuate at the age of 65 years. This is fine. But this is interesting, which is known as the proviso. See, when you read the Constitution, when you read any provision of any of the laws, there is a proviso in any given section. Not every section or article, but you may find in few that after the content of the article, you will find the additional paragraph which starts with provided as. This is known as proviso. So the proviso of Article 124 Clause 2 reads as, provided that in the case of appointment of a judge other than the Chief Justice of India shall always be consulted. That's it. This is the provision which existed in 1950. This is the provision which exists even today. The Constitution of India, Article 124, Clause 2, simply and clearly and only says that the appointment of every Supreme Court judge, including the Chief Justice of India, shall be made by the President of India under his warrant and seal. And it also further says that for the appointment of Supreme Court judges other than the Chief Justice of India, so which means only for the appointment of Chief Justice of India, the President need not consult the Chief Justice of India, of course. But Article 124 Clause 2 clearly says that, the proviso clearly says that for the appointment of all Supreme Court judges by the President shall, the terminology used over there is shall. The President shall consult the Chief Justice of India. Now, the whole game, the whole constitutional interpretation, the propounding of the term collegium, which I think you must be well versed with or must be well aware of. Collegium itself got established, got interpreted by this provision which I just now mentioned, that the President of India shall consult the Chief Justice of India for the appointment of all Supreme Court judges except the Chief Justice of India. So this is a very relevant, a very, very important, and let me also tell you, a very talked about provision, because by the interpretation of this very provision, the collegium system has been propounded in India. So let's discuss and find out that what are the provisions concerning the appointment of judges and how the collegium has been propounded in India.